All right, so I was like watching MSNBC earlier today, and Jasmine, just before Morning Joe comes on, Jasmine actually had a guest on. His name is Daniel Lippman, and he was actually referring to something that Donald Trump was, talking about something, the way he refers to Joe Biden. I think, in my opinion, really, and I think my opinion counts for something because I think probably a lot of other people are probably thinking about this as well. Why repeat negative stuff that, the current occupant of the White House actually thinks about Joe Biden, who is, the hopeful candidate and savior of the American people come November. Why repeat this stuff? Why even give this guy attention every time he actually calls people names, says something provocative and um, controversial? Um, because don't most of you already know that the reason he's doing this is because he gets so much attention from doing it? So if he knows that and he knows that the media responds to it, he knows that he can use the media to his advantage because they're just going to repeat what he says, and it's going to be like some kind of it's like it ends up being a propaganda machine because he just basically it's like pushing a button, and the media goes to work for him by even if they're debating what he did, and dissecting it and tearing him apart. He's getting so much attention and airtime compared to the other candidate that, it's going to filter down to the people. Wow, he's the more popular candidate, because there are a lot of really simplistic people in America who just think in terms of, who's getting the most attention, and they don't actually sift through what the media is actually saying when they're actually talking about these points in conversation with one another. They're actually just being influenced by what he actually, in fact, said. Um, take for example take for example the coronavirus, where he was talking about hydroxychloroquine, and how it could actually be beneficial to people in terms of warding off the virus. Some of the people actually were susceptible to that because Donald Trump is an authority figure. They didn't actually sort through it. They didn't listen to all the arguments against it. They just knew that it was he who was saying it. Well, in the same way, when Daniel Lippman was on and, just repeating what Donald Trump was actually saying about Joe Biden, I don't think that was such a good thing. And I think that the media, and I like MSNBC, but I just think this repeating of what Donald Trump is saying is going to have a negative influence on a lot of people, and people are going to be influenced by it, and they're going to think twice about who's the better candidate. As unbelievable as it may seem to you, they're going to think, oh, who is the better candidate, Donald Trump or Joe Biden? They're not going to they're not going to look at Donald Trump in terms of how he kind of idolizes rather people like maybe Putin or Kim Jong Un because of their authoritarian regimes, and how they actually they're not going to think of you know how Putin kind of deals with his oppressors by getting rid of them. Nemtsov. What about the people in England with this thing that was going around where they ended up being in the hospital? Um, Otto Warmbier. I mean, what happened to him? It's like, did he just become sacrificial kind of symbol, and that he doesn't really deserve any retribution or just justice? Oh, but Donald Trump sent these letters to I mean, got these letters from Kim Jong Un and refers them as love letters. I mean, this is a guy. I mean, the vast majority of the American people aren't looking at, how demented this guy actually is. So, um, I think, and then recently, it's like the charade is going on where the media is actually treating Donald Trump as a legitimate candidate. Oh, well, this is what Donald Trump actually has to do in order to win. I just can't believe that they're actually using those words to describe this guy who has been so irresponsible with his presidency that they actually even treat him as though he deserves to be referred to as a legitimate candidate. You know, did somehow amnesia settle in on the public where they just forgot about all of what Donald Trump has done up until now, including the impeachment and everything else, and now they've just kind of referred to him in a new kind of context. So, I mean, um, you know, human beings are time binders, that is true, but it's usually, within a generation, not confined just to the last several weeks of knowledge we have about a certain candidate. Um, so that's, time binding, you know, Korzybski or whatever his name is. Um, so, the map is not the territory. Anyway, books like that are very enlightening. Same with Public Opinion by Walter Lippmann. Anyway, I wish the media would get their act together and, put Donald Trump into the context that he actually belongs. But, I want to say something positive because I think what Joe Scarborough said about, Mark Zuckerberg was right on the money. And, pardon the pun, actually, but I was watching a commencement address by Sheryl Sandberg that had taken place, a few years back. She's actually suggesting to the people at the address, these graduating students, to once in a while click on the advertisement on Facebook because Facebook would make more money. I mean, it wouldn't, it really doesn't matter what advertisement, just click on it. Now, if that doesn't really suggest how much integrity that company has when she's kind of an ambassador, acting as its ambassador when she's giving the commencement address, then I don't really know um, what integrity means if that doesn't really suggest a person of lack of integrity. But what do you expect from a guy who actually, Mark Zuckerberg, who starts his company by breaking into a database because he has the technical know-how to, and stealing all the personal profiles of people to start his company? If that's not a red flag to a person without integrity, I really don't know what is. Anyway, way to go on that, Joe Scarborough. So I'm going to sign off, and I hope everyone takes care. Goodbye for now.